The Saints Row reboot was hated by just about everybody. Users gave it terrible reviews, and the only individuals I saw simping over it were the critics who were clearly paid to. And now, of course, after the disaster that it was, the Embracer CEO has come out and talked about how disappointed he was by the polarizing response to the game. I have a bunch of things to show off, but before we get into the topic at hand, if you enjoy the content that I create, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Follow me on social media like Twitter or mine so that you can see when my content is posted. And of course, if you do really enjoy the videos and the live streams that I create, please consider becoming a Dark Titan via Patreon for just $1 a month, or support the channel via YouTube memberships. All of the links are in the description, and of course, I do really appreciate all of the support. So this is a Niche Gamer article. It says Embracer CEO is disappointed by Saints Row polarizing response. So it says now that the Saints Row reboot has released and was met with lukewarm reception, it stands at an average critic score of a 64 on OpenCritic at this time. These numbers disappointed the Lars Windforge CEO of Embracer, who are the parent company of publisher Deep Silver and developer Volition. Lars spoke during Embracer's AGM, where the polarizing response of Saints Row was discussed. Now, this does only talk about the critic score, and critics did rate this game a bit higher than users did, but even critics were very disappointed and were just underwhelmed with the experience, but users absolutely hated it. It says, personally, I had hoped for a greater reception to the game, he said. It's been very polarizing. There are a lot of things that could be said in detail around it, but I'm on the one hand happy to see that lots of gamers and fans are happy, and at the same time I'm a bit sad to also see fans not happy, so it's difficult. It's very clear to see why fans were not happy with this title, and it's simply because they decided to go in a different direction, okay? They decided to change around the main characters. They decided to tone down the edgy jokes and humor. Overall, they decided to just make the game a little bit too bland for the people who have previously played and loved Saints Row because it was edgy, because it pushed the boundaries, just like something like Grand Theft Auto. It says, however, he did express that they should be patient with determining if the game is a success or not. So what I get from this is the game isn't a success so far, and that is very bad for them because it's been out for quite a few weeks at this point. If this game was selling amazing, it was selling out, and they were, very excited for maybe a follow-up to this title, I do genuinely think they would have thrown it in our faces already, because there was a lot of backlash around this game. They would have jumped at the opportunity to go, look at us, we sold a ton of copies of this game. Haha, you just were wrong about this title. People actually like it, but they're not doing that because it probably didn't sell the way they anticipated it to. It says, I think we need to wait for the quarterly report in November to have more details around this. We're still fairly early in our release window and are still collecting data, and there is also bug fixing and more content coming. Of course, the good old, well, we have to wait, a little bit longer, a couple more months before we can decide if this game was a success or not, which clearly, to me, it sounds like it's not, and I am going to show off the sales drops in just a minute, which I did previously talk about, but he added, on the financial side, I know, or I'm confident we will make money on the investment. Would it have been as great a return on investment as we have seen in many other games? Not very likely, but we will make money, and that's a very good starting point at least. Now, of course, I talked about this already, but the Saints Row reboot physical sales dropped a staggering 80% in the UK a mere week after it launched. And of course, these are just physical sales. We don't know about digital sales, and of course, these are just UK numbers, but this is still a very big market. It's still a lot of people, and if a game drops by 80% there, I wonder what it dropped in other regions and in other markets. I never expected this game to do well. I never really expected it to be successful, simply because the way that the developers and the social media account managers talked to fans and addressed fans. They basically said, if you don't like it, don't buy it. Haters are gonna hate. Screw you if you're not with our, new reimagining of what Saints Row could be. And of course, a lot of people didn't like that, and they didn't show up to buy it. And unfortunately for them, the people who did show up to buy it were disappointed with it. If we go over to something like Metacritic, as you can see, the Xbox One scores for this game are all the way down to a 1.6, and of course it's on many other platforms: PC, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Stadia, Xbox Series X. But all of the scores are right around here. The highest user scores on Metacritic are a 3.0. That is still absolutely terrible for them. I mean, people were just very underwhelmed with this title, very disappointed. As you can see here, let's just read a handful of the reviews. A 4 out of 10. Good graphics, bad everything else. The game is a buggy mess. The graphics look very bad. The story is bad. The ending is very bad. The characters are generic and cringe. And I have heard that they have released a handful of patches at this point for this title, but I've still been following the news about Saints Row on, Twitter and just social media in general, and everyone is still saying this game is buggy and glitchy, and there are still a ton of problems with it. So I don't know what exactly they're releasing in these updates, but they're not good enough. People are still experiencing a ton of issues. The developers have publicly stated Saints Row 4 was a mistake, and they are going to fix that mistake by making the most hyper-woke Gen Z game possible. The game is a soulless, pure cringe, unplayable mess. Anything even remotely fun has been removed from the game. This is what happens when developers hate themselves and hate their customers. And that was a giant problem I felt from the beginning, is that the people behind this game hated us. Hated the people who loved Saints Row previously, who just wanted another good Saints Row game with the type of humor and characters that we saw in 1, 2, and 3, and even 4 to a certain degree. I felt so insulted with the way that they didn't care about our criticisms and our feedback. No, they just wanted to paint us as terrible people who are toxic gamers, and they didn't have to listen to our feedback. And I mean, they're allowed to not listen to our feedback, but this is the situation you end up with. I honestly think that it's hilarious the CEO had to come out and talk about how disappointed he was with the response to this game. People, are going to be, very, very critical of a title when you go in a different direction than the previous games, and you go on to insult the very people you need to swipe their credit cards. I don't think that this game sold well. I think that now they're trying to put out any kind of statements like this they can, so that when the numbers eventually are released, they can go, well, it's because of X, Y, and Z. Of course, the classic toxic gamers, people didn't want to give it a chance spiel that we always hear time and time again. But yeah, I doubt this game sold well. And now we're even seeing CEOs come out and talk about all of the problems that they faced with this title. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed it, please make sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. And of course, if you didn't, make sure to give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.